Donald Trump sees the world in stark terms: winners and losers. He believes in strength above all else. He disdains traditional alliances and diplomacy. Trump prefers direct deals. He sees himself as the ultimate negotiator. Trump's America First approach prioritizes American interests above all else. This shapes his view of Iran. He sees Iran as a hostile actor. He wants to project American strength. He aims to limit Iran's influence in the Middle East. Trump is known for his unpredictable style. He might lash out with harsh rhetoric. He could impose crippling sanctions, or he might suddenly shift tactics. This unpredictability makes his potential Iran policy a major question mark. The world watches and wonders, what will Trump do? The Iran nuclear deal was a signature achievement of the Obama administration. It was a landmark agreement that aimed to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons, a goal that had eluded previous administrations for decades. It was the result of years of painstaking diplomacy. Negotiators from the United States, Iran, and 5 other world powers worked tirelessly to hammer out the details. The deal was seen as a triumph of multilateral diplomacy, showcasing the power of negotiation over conflict. It placed strict limits on Iran's nuclear program. Under the terms of the agreement, Iran agreed to reduce its stockpile of enriched uranium, limit the number of centrifuges it operated, and allow international inspectors unprecedented access to its nuclear facilities. In return, it provided relief from crippling economic sanctions that had devastated Iran's economy. This economic relief was intended to incentivize Iran to comply with the deal's terms. However, Trump hated it. He called it the worst deal ever. Trump argued that the deal was too lenient and that it failed to address other critical issues, such as Iran's ballistic missile program and its support for militant groups in the region. He withdrew the United States from the agreement in 2018. This decision was a significant departure from the previous administration's approach and marked a turning point in U.S.-Iran relations. This move shocked many world leaders. They had invested considerable political capital in the deal and saw it as a crucial component of global non-proliferation efforts. It isolated the U.S. from its European allies. The European Union, along with other signatories, remained committed to the deal, creating a rift between the U.S. and its traditional allies. Trump's decision to abandon the deal was driven by several factors. His administration believed that a tougher stance on Iran would force the country to make more concessions. He viewed Iran as a fundamental threat. Trump and his advisors saw Iran's regional activities and its potential to develop nuclear weapons as a direct challenge to U.S. interests and security. He believed the deal didn't go far enough in curbing Iran's nuclear ambitions. Trump argued that the sunset clauses in the agreement, which allowed certain restrictions to expire after a set period, were particularly problematic. He thought it didn't address Iran's ballistic missile program or its support for regional proxies. These issues were seen as critical to regional stability and security, and Trump believed they needed to be part of any comprehensive agreement. He wanted to renegotiate a better deal, one that would force Iran to fully capitulate to American demands. Trump's administration aimed for a more comprehensive agreement that would address not only the nuclear issue, but also Iran's regional behavior and missile program. Trump's actions set the stage for a dangerous escalation of tensions with Iran. The withdrawal from the deal led to a series of confrontations and a heightened military presence in the Persian Gulf, raising fears of a potential conflict. It remains a key point of contention in the relationship between the two countries. The future of U.S.-Iran relations continues to be uncertain, with the nuclear issue at the heart of ongoing tensions and diplomatic efforts. Trump loves economic sanctions. He sees them as a powerful tool. He believes they can force countries to bend to his will. He used them aggressively against Iran. After withdrawing from the nuclear deal, Trump unleashed a maximum pressure campaign. He reimposed sanctions lifted under the agreement. He slapped new sanctions on Iran's oil exports, financial institutions, and key industries. The sanctions were designed to cripple Iran's economy. They were meant to force Iran back to the negotiating table. Trump wanted concessions. He demanded a new deal on his terms. The sanctions had a devastating impact on Iran. They caused widespread economic hardship. They fueled inflation and unemployment. They led to shortages of medicine and other essential goods. However, they did not achieve Trump's ultimate goal of regime change or a new nuclear deal. Fire and fury military action. A real threat? Trump talks tough. His rhetoric is often filled with bold statements and aggressive posturing. He likes to project an image of strength. This image is carefully crafted to show him as a decisive leader who is not afraid to take action. He often threatens military action. Iran is no exception. His administration has consistently taken a hardline stance against the Iranian regime. Trump has repeatedly warned Iran. His warnings are often accompanied by strong language, emphasizing the potential consequences of defying the United States. He has said that all options are on the table. This phrase is a hallmark of his foreign policy, suggesting that military intervention is always a possibility. He ordered the assassination of Qasem Soleimani. This move was seen as a significant escalation in the U.S.-Iran conflict. Soleimani was a top Iranian general. He was considered one of the most powerful figures in Iran, responsible for many of its military operations. The strike brought the U.S. and Iran to the brink of war. The world watched anxiously as tensions soared, fearing a full-scale conflict. Trump's rhetoric has raised concerns about a potential conflict. His unpredictable nature adds to the uncertainty, making it difficult to predict his next move. Some fear he might be tempted to launch military strikes against Iran. The presence of U.S. military assets in the region only heightens these fears. They worry he might be provoked by Iranian actions or miscalculations. Any misstep could potentially lead to a dangerous escalation. Others argue that Trump is bluffing. They believe his threats are a strategic move to pressure Iran without actual intent to follow through. They say he is using the threat of military force as leverage. This tactic is aimed at bringing Iran to the negotiating table on more favorable terms. They believe he wants to extract concessions from Iran without actually going to war. The goal is to achieve diplomatic victories through intimidation. The question remains, would Trump really risk a war with Iran? The answer is complex, involving a mix of strategic calculations, political considerations, and personal inclinations. Historically, U.S.-Iran relations have been fraught with tension and conflict. Each administration has had its own approach, but the underlying issues remain unresolved. Public opinion is divided. Some support a hardline stance, believing it is necessary to curb Iran's influence, while others fear the consequences of military action. Diplomatic efforts continue, but the threat of military action looms large. The international community watches closely, hoping for a peaceful resolution. As Trump's term progresses, his approach to Iran will be closely scrutinized. The world waits to see if his tough talk will translate into action, or if it will remain just that. Talk. Dealmaker-in-chief? The possibility of Trumpian diplomacy? Trump fancies himself a master dealmaker. He loves to make deals. He often boasts about his negotiating skills. Could he strike a deal with Iran? Trump has expressed a willingness to meet with Iranian leaders. He has said he would talk to them without preconditions. He claims he could get a better deal than anyone else. However, Trump's approach to diplomacy is unconventional. He relies on personal relationships and pressure tactics. He often makes demands that are seen as unrealistic or unacceptable by the other side. It remains to be seen whether Trump's style of diplomacy could work with Iran. Some experts believe that his willingness to engage directly with Iranian leaders could open a path to negotiations. Others are skeptical, arguing that his unpredictable behavior and maximalist demands make a deal unlikely. The nuclear question, a return to brinkmanship? The future of Iran's nuclear program is a central issue in the U.S.-Iran relationship. This issue has been a point of contention for decades, with both nations often finding themselves at odds over Iran's nuclear ambitions. The stakes are incredibly high, as the potential for a nuclear-armed Iran could destabilize the entire Middle East region. Trump's withdrawal from the nuclear deal has raised tensions and increased the risk of a nuclear-armed Iran. The 2015 agreement, known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, was designed to limit Iran's nuclear capabilities in exchange for the lifting of economic sanctions. However, Trump's decision to exit the deal in 2018 has led to a significant escalation in hostilities. Trump argues that his maximum pressure campaign is designed to force Iran back to the negotiating table and secure a better deal that permanently limits Iran's nuclear ambitions. He believes that by applying economic and political pressure, the U.S. can compel Iran to agree to more stringent terms that would prevent it from ever developing nuclear weapons. However, his approach has so far been counterproductive, as Iran has responded to U.S. pressure by escalating its nuclear activities. Since the U.S. withdrawal from the JCPOA, Iran has increased its uranium enrichment levels. reduced its compliance with the deal's restrictions, and expanded its nuclear research and development efforts. If Trump returns to office, he is likely to continue his hardline approach towards Iran's nuclear program. His administration's strategy would likely involve a combination of diplomatic isolation, economic sanctions, and military posturing to achieve its objectives. He may ramp up sanctions, engage in military threats, and increase the U.S. military presence in the region to deter Iran from advancing its nuclear program. These measures are intended to demonstrate U.S. resolve and willingness to use force if necessary, or even attempt to sabotage Iran's nuclear facilities. Covert operations such as cyber attacks and targeted strikes could be employed to disrupt Iran's nuclear infrastructure and delay its progress. Such actions could provoke a dangerous escalation and increase the risk of the potential for miscalculation or unintended consequences is high, and any military confrontation could have far-reaching implications for regional and global security. The international community faces a critical choice: revive diplomacy and engagement with Iran, or risk a new nuclear crisis in the Middle East. Diplomatic efforts, such as re-entering the JCPOA or negotiating a new agreement, could provide a peaceful resolution to the nuclear issue and reduce tensions. However, this would require significant political will and cooperation from all parties involved. The path forward is fraught with challenges, but the stakes are too high to ignore. The world must decide whether to pursue a path of confrontation or cooperation, with the hope that diplomacy can ultimately prevail and prevent a nuclear crisis.